In regards to sources, my personal cutoff date is around 220 CE. Before this period, everything must be examined. After 220, there are very few sources that tell me what I want to know. My goal is to get the clearest picture possible of the earliest versions of Christianity and to explain the relationship between early Christianity and Catholicism. It is my hope that I will be able to account for every theological, philosophical, and secular mention of Christianity during this time frame. I would also hope to demystify many of the early versions of Christianity that were eventually declared heresies. I've found that with few exceptions, like the Panarion of Epiphanius, that the information beyond 220 CE is simply too inaccurate or too redundant. On modern scholarship, it is very rare that I would use a modern source. To demonstrate the problem I have with modern scholarship, we can use Marcion of Sinope. Irenaeus claims in Against Heresies that Marcion rewrote the Gospel of Luke, meaning obviously that the Gospel of the Lord is not as old as the Gospel of Luke. However, Epiphanius repeats this proposition in the Panarion. Epiphanius compares the two texts line by line and makes note of the differences. While he attempted to verify the claims of Irenaeus, the data presented by Epiphanius proves exactly the opposite. All quantifiable information about this relationship suggests that Marcion came first. It is only the objections of Irenaeus and theologians that follow him that suggest otherwise. Yet, in modern scholarship, overwhelmingly scholars place Luke before Marcion. I am of the opinion that not only does the decision to believe Irenaeus over the data constitute gross intellectual laziness, but it also makes the books of these scholars worthless. Not only have they avoided the simple, verifiable answers, but their entire outlook on early Christianity is based on verifiably false assumptions. When talking about something 2,000 years old, false claims only generate more false claims. Now, recently I have been asked some comparative religion questions, and largely I am unable to verify the claims of comparative religion scholars. What I have found overwhelmingly is that the objects, beliefs, and historicity claims by Christianity come from internal sources. So, for example, if someone were to ask me about Orion's belt in regards to the three magi that appear at the birth of Jesus, my answer would be that there is likely no relationship whatsoever. In that particular case, I have found an internal explanation. If it can be generated internally, it probably doesn't refer to anything else. On the Gospel of Mark, coming from the Odyssey, so far as I can tell, the similarities between the texts are purely coincidental. Much of what is assumed to have been borrowed, like the descent into hell, appears to have been internally generated, therefore the Odyssey is not required. Certainly, knowledge of the Odyssey isn't precluded, but it isn't necessary either. In the case of comparative religion, I have found that most assumed connections are simply coincidences. In this journey, I have quite often found myself with answers that I don't like. For example, Justin Martyr gives evidence for an early Gospel of James, but does not give evidence for the infancy in Matthew or Luke. This is, like the position of Marcion, extraordinarily different than what modern scholars assume. What I have found is that combined with Revelation 12, there is very early evidence of an infancy account, and there is circumstantial evidence that would suggest that the theology that created the infancy story believed that it was just as important as the resurrection account. The infancy was not a cutesy story passed down orally until written. It was one of two cornerstones of a religion. The infancy, for this theology, was the equal to the resurrection. That is not a comfortable position to take. However, I am in the habit of accepting whatever answer I get. I hope that answers all the questions on sources. It probably doesn't, but in general, I stay very, very early, and I don't care what modern sources say at all, because I can't afford to care. I can't afford to make those kinds of mistakes. I make plenty of mistakes on my own without having to accept something that somebody else says and then find out months later that it's just flat out wrong. So that's all I got for you today. If you got any questions, let me know. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye.